Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox back for another episode. I'm absolutely thrilled today to have with me Brandon Woolf and Paige Hanson. They are the co-founders of SecureLab. It's a software product and service provider that I recently found out about, and they've got a really cool thing. And in the software world, when you say you got a really cool thing, that means it's pretty cool. They were gracious enough to take some time from their very busy day to visit with me for this podcast. So, with that incredibly long winded introduction, first of all, guys, welcome. And thank you so much for taking the time to visit with me today.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. Thanks for
Yeah,
having
thanks for
us.
having me.
Brandon, can I start with you and ask you about your professional background, then transition over to Paige?
Yeah, sure. I'll try to keep it brief. It's a little bit longer than I would like it to be, but yeah, prior to this venture, I was running a full stack agency. We had built out some analytic products and then also handled some different advertising and other compliance needs in the advertising world.
Great.
Paige?
Yeah. And my background, so I spent almost 17 years at Norton LifeLock. So a variety of roles in the cybersecurity space. And most notably, it developed a national training program for law enforcement alongside FBI LEDA and really got into the components of keeping not only consumers safe, but your patients if you're in hospitals and your customers if you are a business. And so that really dovetailed nicely into the compliance world and the privacy and security controls that there are to help keep information safe.
So let's turn over to Secure Labs. And could you tell us what it is? But what really intrigues me about you guys is the need you saw or the market opportunity you saw. I love talking to innovators because you guys would look at the same thing as me and see something different, or you see an opportunity or you see a need. So I really wanted to ask you, what was that spark? What was that need? What was that opportunity that you guys saw that led to Secure Labs?
Yeah, sure. I'll take this one. But yeah, so SecureLabs is a GRC, governance, risk, and compliance software that'll help you manage all of your compliance and security needs. So the one of the main things that we saw and where we saw opportunity was that we had actually gone through and we were looking at possibly being an MSP provider. So we went through, we interviewed all the main platforms, your Vanta, your Drata, your Hyperproof, and what we found was, hey, they were really expensive. And in a lot of cases, like OneTrust, they were really complex and you needed a PhD in OneTrust to be able to use their software. What we decided is that for your SMBs and companies outside of your Fortune 500, Fortune 1000, is that we needed a solution that would tailor to more of these organizations and that would be at an affordable price point for them, but also be a tool that they could easily come in and figure out how to use and use within their organization with more than just one or two people. And more people in the organization could understand what's going on with compliance and security and privacy.
Pate?
Yeah, I mean, SMBs, they need to have the same tools, similar tools to help protect their businesses. And statistics show they are low hanging fruit as far as if you're a large enterprise organization and you're hit with, let's say, $100,000 fine or cyber attack that puts you out for maybe a day or two. Those large enterprise organizations can recover probably pretty fast. Small to medium sized businesses can't. They might not make payroll. They may lose their business. Their reputation is damaged. They may lose customers. So the fact that we can offer a solution that is not only affordable, but then easy to use, or if they want, well, I know we'll get into the compliance as a service part, but use us as an extension of their team, that helps the entire security posture of the organization.
So you guys have a great phrase on your website, and it's something along the lines that security and compliance should be, quote, together. Frankly, that's not something I hear a lot in the compliance world. So tell me why you guys think security and compliance should be together.
Well, when it comes to the frameworks, the compliance frameworks, a lot of the controls are security related, privacy related. So why not put them together? We understand in an organization, depending on how your organization is rolled out, you have two different departments, but they should be working hand in hand. It shouldn't be just the compliance department over here worrying about all the things and then everybody's off doing their job. If it's integrated within the organization and they're together and it's security is top of mind, you are going to have not only just a higher adoption rate for the best practices to keep your organization safe, but then you also just in general have more of a security first culture and can have at any time somebody say, oh, that's not compliant. And then you can easily talk to other people within the organization. It's not just siloed much.
So, what are some of the key frameworks the Secure Labs solution covers?
So we have over 250 different frameworks in our platform, which is really helpful. It covers a number of industries. But the most popular right now that our clients are using and out there are SOC 2. So SOC 2, a lot of your upstream partners are going to require you to have your SOC 2 report in order to do business with them. So we see that a lot. HIPAA. So we do a lot with small practice HIPAA, being an extension of their team and making sure they're following all the rules. NIST is a big one. It's a really great foundation if a company is looking for a foundation of a security and privacy framework. And then a lot of the ISO 27001 is a big one. Then don't forget all the state privacy laws. There's a number of states that have enforceable state privacy laws, and there's a number of them in the pipeline. And so we cover all of those as well. So it's really nice and able to add a framework on. If you're following an existing framework, you can easily add an additional one on with our platform pretty easily. It's nice that we cover so many.
Who is your customer base, or what even vertical or what industries are your customer base or bases?
Yeah, so we really are focused on SMBs, and that's our primary client base now. And that really comes from two areas. We're seeing a lot in the small practice healthcare space, like Paige mentioned. And then we're also seeing a lot of downstream through partner channels. So we work with a lot of MSPs and MSSPs and DSOs and all of those things that they're already integrated in with a lot of these organizations and trying to help them get a lot of these things in place. And so we're able to come in as a cost-effective solution, and then they'll use that for all of their clients that they're working with. So we have a lot of downstream partners that we work with. And yeah, that ties us in with a lot of the SMBs. And quite frankly, they're a little bit kind of all over the place, from self-storage organizations to, again, your small dental practice to your ketamine clinics. And yeah, we do a lot with a little bit of everyone.
What is an SMP for those who might not know?
No, I'm sorry, SMBs. So small to medium-sized business.
You said another acronym, MSP,
Oh, managed service provider. I'm sorry. So,
MSSP?
and that is a managed security service provider.
Okay. What really intrigues me about what you guys are doing is obviously I've played in this world for a long time, but you're absolutely spot on that many smaller companies either haven't thought about this or didn't feel like they could afford it. And what I try to emphasize to businesses is I understand their legal requirements and you understand that, but you can't do business with a larger company unless you have these in place. And so it's really a cost of doing business. But if you have that, it's going to be a true market differentiator for you as an SMB looking to do business with a larger enterprise. Is that a discussion that you guys have with clients or potential clients?
We do. Yeah. And that's actually oftentimes that's the start of our conversation. So they are looking for more information because they've heard this from their, whether it's upstream or downstream partners. They want to be able to promote and using it also as a marketing tool to say, look, we have our SOC 2 or our ISO 27001 certificate. We've gone and we take security and privacy seriously. And that's it start a lot of times our conversations with our clients.
So what are the four core components of a security framework and how does SecureLabs meet them for your customers?
Yeah. So if you look at, I'll use NIST as the baseline example. So they have 5 core tenets that they really look and identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. And so most of your other frameworks will have some variation of that they relate to. And so within our framework, we track and we identify all the controls that relate to those specific frameworks. And so we help build out all those core tenets within your organization so that you're able to really enhance your organizational culture as it relates to those things and how you're identifying threats and then how you respond to them. And then if an incident were to happen, how you recover. And so that's part of building out your compliance program, is building all those things in. And so we absolutely have all of that built in. And one of the interesting ways that we're really kind of taking off here in the next couple months is we're taking and using AI and AI agents, which will tie into our controls, will tie into policies, and it'll help develop and create recovery plans and disaster recovery plans. Instead of months of work writing and creating these plans, which a lot of organizations have done in the past, we now can create these and help them create these plans in a matter of minutes. They can then go back, review, identify, hey, here are some sections we need to change or update. But they can now spend more time on actually implementation and updating employees and making them aware of things. So we create more time and opportunity for implementation, which ultimately helps reduce costs. And so that's an area that we're really working hard on now, and we'll be rolling out here shortly.
Are you guys, we focused on the tool or the product, but it strikes me in listening to both of you guys that you're really providing at least counsel and advice and perhaps even guidance to some of these small to medium businesses. Would that be a fair statement?
It is. That's why we also, yes, you can have our platform and people can, and businesses can license our platform. But where we found the bigger benefit is our offering called Compliance as a Service. And so that is the counsel or the guidance throughout the process, where we become an extension of their team. They're not having to rely on, somebody internally that has additional responsibilities on top of the compliance effort. So it really is nice to have industry experts on your team and then to help guide through that entire process.
And frankly, that's what excited me the most about visiting with you guys is compliance as a service. So I started in compliance a long time ago when we were perceived as Dr. No from the land of no, because we were here to say no, and we were the Department of Business Non-Development. You guys have taken this concept and really, as I see it, integrated it into the business process, and that through a seamless integration, you can take care of the legal and regulatory requirements, provide the information to upstream or downstream business partners, but really put compliance into the business process. Would that be a fair assessment of what I've seen?
Absolutely. Yes. We need you on our marketing team, Tom. That is exactly. We want to, one, seamlessly integrate, but, business needs to go on, but we need to do it under the parameters of making sure we're following whether the compliance framework or just the policy that is been enabled. In the land of Dr. No, it could be, let's find a way or an alternative way. So you're working together with your team members or your business partners, and then having a policy or modifying your policy, whatever it will be, but then you're still following the compliance framework, and still being able to grow and adapt.
And I think one thing you're seeing there is that you're seeing a kind of a change in mindset, maybe from even a handful of years ago. And with just the sheer number of breaches that are occurring and impacts to individuals and organizations, that businesses themselves are kind of changing. And plus, on top of that, you're seeing like more demands to get your business insurance or to get cybersecurity insurance. A lot of times you're having to show some type of form of that, hey, you're taking this seriously and that you're doing something.
I had a great question teed up, but now you've completely obliterated that with your answer. So let me just pick up on exactly what you said, Brandon, because do small and medium businesses understand that to get insurance, to get a bank loan, to get funding, to get private equity investment, to unlock the value of your organization, they have to have these types of security, data privacy, data protection, and compliance processes in places? That sort of an educational discussion you have with people for them to understand, to unlock the value of whatever it is their business is, they need something like this?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's that was something that we had recently. I won't say specific client, but basically they had gone through and it was one of their upstream partners required a SOC 2. And they're like, hey, this wasn't something we were looking to do just yet, but it was a large customer that was going to be a lot of business. And now all of a sudden, hey, yes, we got to go pay to get this done. We got to put all these things in place. But hey, we're getting this massive client because we have this in place, and we can't get this client if we don't. And so I think that's really starting to be something that a lot of partners, and again, like you mentioned, the insurance companies are starting to require is that, hey, we need to know that you guys are doing this, and here's one way that we can do it. And without that, it's, hey, you're losing business. And so ultimately it is a driver of business, and it's a way actually to add additional marketing on top that you do have these things in place.
Here's the other question I wanted to ask you. In listening to both of you guys and your focus on small to medium businesses as opposed to a multi-thousand or multinational employer, it struck me that perhaps because these companies are so small, they're not as siloed as you might see with a multi-thousand or multinational company employer, so that it actually, because of the smallness in size, it might be easier not to destroy silos because they don't exist, but to put the package of security, compliance, and privacy management really in one tool. Does that resonate at all?
It does. Yeah. When we are working with a small to medium sized business, usually we're working with somebody maybe in the legal department because they're maybe overseeing the policies and the development of those policies, and then somebody within the IT department. So it's not as siloed where they aren't working together. These legal teams and sometimes we work with somebody in the HR department. Sometimes it's the office manager, but so they're not so siloed. They're working with already with the entire organization. It's a really good time to start the foundation of having a GRC platform or an auditable process when you are so small, because if you were to grow, it just makes it so it can grow with you.
Some of the geek hairs on my head just stood up. So we're going to go full geek here
I love it.
because Paige, you said auditable.
Yes.
And why is the auditability of your solution so important for any business?
Yeah, it comes two different ways. So let's start on one side. Let's say you did have an incident where it was a cyber breach or an incident of your customer information. Something happened. Well, typically the regulating body or possibly your insurance provider is going to want to come back and say, were you doing A, B, C all the way through X, Y, Z? And if you don't have those things documented, it could take a lot of time, take a lot of money to try to find the evidence that you were actually doing those things. If you have it in a platform that is not only time stamping everything, but has everything all in one place that you can just then give access to the requester, then it makes things that you're saving time, you're saving money, and you have the potential of not having such hefty of fines because you do have an auditable process. And then that kind of dovetails into the fine in general. There is usually a range of fine that a company can incur because they had some sort of breach of information, or there's been a request for maybe a customer asks for the request of their policy. During that time, the fines range depending on how much you are doing in this policy or how long you've been doing it, or if you have one at all. So usually you then have less the fines lessen or not as many fines if you do have an auditable process. And Brandon, I'll let you add anything if I've missed something.
No, I think you're spot on there. It's really when I'll use HIPAA as an example, and HIPAA has basically a quadrant of 4 different level of fines based on your auditable process and what you have in place. And each one that you can prove that you have in place, your fines get reduced. And by using a platform like ours or another platform that helps to manage this and track this and everything else, if Lord forbid something were to happen and you were to have that breach or that incident, then at least it's not going to basically kill your business. It's not going to put you out of business because you're paying this massive fine because you just neglected basically your duties and your responsibilities to your customer.
So I grew up professionally in the energy industry. And one of the things that I saw in the energy industry was the top level companies required anyone who wanted to do business with them to have a compliance program. And then as they became more sophisticated, they said, okay, we want to look at your program. And then they said, we want to audit your program on an annual or biannual or at least contract renewal basis. And that's where the auditability of it became so critical.
Mhm.
Are you guys seeing a business to business audit of the compliance, security, privacy management components of your solution from the business perspective as opposed to perhaps a regulatory perspective?
So at the SMB level, we're not seeing that quite yet. I think that as you move upstream in your Fortune 500 and Fortune 1000, you'll see a little bit more of that. For our clients, we're not getting those requests quite yet. But I imagine as we continue to grow, as we continue to add larger clientele, that we'll see some of that. And I think that just over time, just as kind of the world gets a little bit more risky on that on with security and where kind of AI is allowing people to go without as much knowledge base, I think that you'll see some of those things creep down the line in the next few years.
Let me turn the focus a little bit because you have on your website password management. And I think everyone probably knows about that, but it's not something that gets talked about very much at all. So I have some platforms where I'm incredibly irritated to have to change my password once a quarter. I used to work at Halliburton and we had to change it, I think, every 30 days, which was really irritating. But why is password management such an overlooked security tool?
I think from a password perspective, passwords are the keys to the kingdom almost, whether it's your email, your company's information. So if you one have a password only or you're reusing passwords, which a lot of us are do because that's easy. It's kind of the convenience versus security discussion. But if somebody gets a hold of your password, a fraudster gets a hold of your password, and they're then able to act like you, and now they are emailing on your behalf and identity theft almost, they can, there's so much that they can do. So using a password manager, enabling multi-factor authentication is extra layers for making it harder to get into those accounts. And if we use the example of, let's say, Change Healthcare, massive cyber attack, I mean, they will be picking up the pieces for a long time with that. It turned out it was primarily because they didn't have multi-factor authentication on their accounts, meaning you have something that you have, a password, something that you or know, which is your password, something that you have, which might be a token on your device. And that's two layers of authentication that it would have made it so the fraudster wouldn't have been easily to get in. So adopting these policies that use a password manager or practices of enabling multi-factor authentication overall protects the kind of the cyber posture of your organization.
So I'm going to ask both of you guys to put your pontificating hat on and look down the road to 2030 about the term compliance as a service, because I absolutely love that. I hope that's the direction we're going. But I wanted to ask both of you guys as we move towards the end of today's recording, where you see compliance as a service down the road. And Brandon, we'll start with you.
Yeah. So I think it's going to change a lot. I think the capabilities of today's AI systems are advancing fairly rapidly, which will allow us to do a lot of things. So what that'll really allow us to do is the compliance as a service will not be as heavily mandated by basically people. And so you won't need a large group of people to implement these programs and to put all these policies in place and develop out all these checklists and do all of these integrations. We'll have different AI agents that will be able to do a vast majority of those things. And then we'll have the human layer that will kind of supervise them and make sure that what we're implementing and what we're doing is at the standards or has the right information and just basically verifying what's happening in the background. But what it'll do is it'll allow for a lot more organizations to provide a lot more compliant and a lot more secure environment across the board. So I think that overall, it'll allow for better organizational structure across the board. And I think that's where it's going. And I think all that probably happens before 2030.
Yeah.
Paige?
Brandon covered it. I mean, you're just going to see compliance and regulatory laws are not going anywhere. If anything, they're going to become more strict and even more important to follow. It's going to be part of what we talked about earlier. It's part of doing business is making sure you have not only following a compliance framework or standard, but have an auditable process. So that I think is just going to be more apparent for regardless of the size of business that you're in. It's just going to be, instead of this education that we're having to do with a lot of SMBs, it's going to be, oh, well, yeah, we know that, we know we need it. Now tell me how we get it.
Well, guys, unfortunately, we are near the end of our time for this episode. But before we leave, I wanted to ask both of you all, if our listeners wanted more information on yourselves, on the SecureLabs, or to get in touch with you guys, what would be the best place for them to go or way for them to do so?
Yes, online, you can go to SecureLabs.ai. There is a connect with us button there that you can fill out information, or you can find me a page at SecureLabs.ai. I love connecting with people on LinkedIn as well. So happy to connect there.
Yeah. And I'm just Brandon at SecureLabs.ai, and you can feel free to reach out to me there.
All right, guys, thank you again. I hope we can continue this conversation.
Yeah, we'd love to. Tom, thank you so much.
Thanks, Tom. Appreciate it.